Nostalgic movie review.
Nerdy.
Married man.
Welcome to new and nostalgic movie reviews. I'm David.
And I'm Steven.
And today we are doing a special original versus remake episode looking at Jumanji from 1995 versus Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle from 2017.
Yes.
The original is rated PG. It's 1 hour and 44 minutes. For the synopsis, it says, when two kids find and play a magical board game, they release a man trapped in it for decades and a host of dangers that can only be stopped by finishing the game.
Bum, bum, bum.
In this movie, we got Robin Williams, Kirsten Dunst, Bonnie Hunt, Jonathan Hyde, Bradley Pierce, Bebe Neuwirth, and David Allen Greer. It is a very well casted movie.
Oh, yes.
Really enjoy these characters. For Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle.
Yes, this movie is PG-13, an hour and 59 minutes. Like you said, it came out in 2017. The synopsis for this movie is four teenagers are sucked into a magical video game, and the only way they can escape is to work together to finish the game. This one, we have Dwayne Johnson, Karen Gillan, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Rhea Starby, Bobby Cannavale, Nick Jonas, Alex Wolff, and a few others. But those are the main cast. Also, a really stacked cast. Especially, a lot of these people are either coming back and we haven't really seen them a lot lately, or they're really big names. Like Karen Gillan, I didn't recognize at first. Didn't realize it was Nebula the first time I watched this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then, of course, we always love Jack Black in almost everything he's in. He's not enough. Yeah.
Agreed. These movies are just both so good, but they're so different from each other. Like we kind of mentioned it at the end of the last episode, but Welcome to the Jungle is not only a remake, but it's also like a reboot, and it's also like a direct sequel.
Yes.
Because it's actually so cool because it starts off right where the original left off, which I found so awesome.
It almost did, because like at the end of the first one, I believe it's 1995, and then it looks like two girls are picking up the game at the end of the...
Well, they don't pick it up. It shows people walking on the beach towards the game.
Oh, okay. But then we see the game appear back in 1996 at the beginning of the new one.
Yeah.
So there's a year span where either someone else may have played the game or didn't play the game at all.
Well, I mean, it's in the same like spot basically.
Yeah.
I mean, in the new one, it's still in that sand, kind of sticking out of the beach, and I mean, it looks like the sand kind of got blown away a little bit.
Okay,
it's sticking more out of the ground, but it almost seems like it's supposed to be like right where the original left off,
and almost
like a nice callback.
Almost the same amount of time jump in the movies too, because the first one jumps 26 years, and the second one actually jumps up 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah. So it's got a both 20-year jump in people being trapped in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really cool seeing how they tie that in, and you know, they both break someone out of the game that got stuck in there. And I also just like, one of the nods I really loved to the original is there's that like fort or whatever that is built in the new movie.
Yeah.
That Nick Jonas's character is staying at.
Yeah.
And I love it because carved in it says Alan Parrish was here. Mm-hmm. And like, that's so awesome.
And that's like, honestly, one of the few things they do to touch on the first one. This movie does really good about not just showing a bunch of things for nostalgic reasonings.
Well, it's a good standalone movie that you don't have to watch the original to enjoy.
Yes.
And it's also just not vomiting nostalgia in your face, like
Yes.
Stephen was just saying. Like, it's not up in your face about it. It has nice little nods here and there, like certain story beats that kind of make callbacks to the original, and it's really well done. This is how you should incorporate
the
nostalgia.
Only other thing that I think that they put in it that was also a touch to the original was at the end of the second, or the end of the second movie, Welcome to the Jungle, when he puts the gem in at the end of the movie and says Jumanji, and the camera goes back and spans out. it shows the whole jungle. The whole jungle is laid out exactly like the game board
Well,
the
and
original was laid out.
on top of that, all of the giant animal statues that are in the movie are modeled after the game pieces from the board game. And there was one other that I was going to say, and I can't remember now. But
maybe you'll think about it later.
Yeah. But
I love there was a lot of connections to these and a lot of similarities between the movies, but they also did it in such a unique and different way. And I love that aspect of the remake. Instead of just doing the same game and the same board game again, having the board game almost be a sentient being that actually traps these people and wants to get people to play these games. And I don't know if it's a good being or a bad being. It seems like he's trying to help these people. Like, I mean, you could get trapped in the game and you could actually die, but to the same extent, everyone, spoiler alert, everyone does survive in these games. So
I do like how the game like adapts with the times, how it turns from a board game to a video game cartridge. So cool. And now I remember one of the things that is almost like a callback to the original is the way they get sucked into the game, how their hands start like turning into particles and streamy, and like they spin into the game as like wisps, and it's almost the same exact animation, just updated.
Which honestly, like, it looks good in both movies. Like, I was surprised watching back the 1995 Jumanji again and seeing like, oh, the graphics and stuff for some of the things in that movie were actually like really good.
Oh
especially,
yeah,
like them getting dragged into the game.
Well, like looking at the original now, I mean, the CG and like the puppet work and stuff, it does look a little dated, but it still looks really good. And I mean, even for the time, like 1995, that was amazing effects.
Oh yeah. I still creeped out by the spiders. Like I can tell they look more fake than I could back in the day, but they still freaked me out watching it again. Like I'm not a fan of spiders. But.
Oh, and I also love the puppet work of the lion. Like it just looks so cool. The way they have all the different like movements of the mouth and the eyes and the claws, and it's so well done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, both these movies are both incredible in their own ways. I think these movies, one of the things that I just absolutely loved was having the actors in the new one play as they were these kids in their bodies.
Oh, it's so good.
It was the most brilliant thing they could have done to make it different and interesting without changing the story at all.
Yeah.
And it honestly made a lot of what this movie is. Without that aspect of this wouldn't be as good. And as far as like a video game style movie, like a game about video games, this is one of the best.
I think I saw an interview somewhere where each respective actor hung out with the teenage version they were supposed to be, so they kind of could get their mannerisms down in the way they acted, and it's just so cool.
Especially Jack Black's performance as Bethany. Oh my gosh.
Over the top in all the best ways.
Like, seriously, like, especially Jack Black looking down and being like, oh, I have to pee. Oh, I have a penis this time. I've never had a penis. What do penises feel like?
What do I do?
And then trying to teach her how to pee. And it's just so funny. And there's even a boner reference with her later on.
Oh, man.
She hugs Nick Jonas. She gets a boner from saving his life. And I was just like, oh my God. But it's so spectacular. It's so funny in every way. And I loved that. Like, them picking their characters blind just by the name, like you would in a lot of old games, and then seeing what the characters look like. It was so funny, their reasonings for picking these characters, and then be like, what? Why?
It was really creative. I like both movies have fairly simple stories, but they're like really engaging, and they know how to draw you in. Like, it's not like super deep or anything, but
no.
One thing I will say about the original, I know in some of our past reviews, I've talked about child actors, and in the original Jumanji, they really picked some great child actors.
Oh,
like
yeah.
they did such a good job in their roles, and you could tell they cared about it. They had a good time.
Well, and it's really cool because actually, like the kid who voices Peter, or the kid who was Peter in the original, he actually voices Chip from Beauty and the Beast. he's actually been doing a lot of like other acting and other voice work and other things before a lot of this. And so like I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so like he was actually like, that's probably why he was so
good for him,
his performance and stuff like that. And Kirsten Dunst in this was really awesome too. Like, this is really young Kirsten Dunst.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I will say about the original movie, it did have a few slow moving points. I think that wasn't necessarily terrible, mainly because of the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
And that, like, I see this as both a positive and a negative. And Dana agreed with me that it seemed more like a horror movie at points than it probably should have. Which Dana was like, you know what? This might be a good intro movie to scary movies if you want to get kids into those. But
I honestly agree with that.
It seemed more like a horror movie than a kids movie at some points. Like, it was just terrifying. I remember watching this as a kid, and it's a scary movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, Van Pelt's scary. The spiders are scary. The crocodiles are scary. Like, everything in this movie is like terrifying. Like in the new one, all the things they face are kind of funny in the way they face them. Like when he gets eaten by the hippo, they get 3 lives in this one. So the lives don't matter as much, and they even are kind of frivolous with it at first until they all get down to the last life.
Well, it just shows the different tone. Like, this movie's the new one is more lighthearted and funny, and the original does have some lighthearted moments, but it really takes it seriously and what the dangers the game brings to their world.
Yeah, and like when you're talking about like some of the slower moments that are good, like one of the slow moments that I really enjoyed was when Alan gets out of the game, Robin Williams' character, and he goes to the bathroom for the first time. He sees toilet paper, and you see him smile, and he says, "No more banana leaves." And it's just that one thing. It's like you really don't realize, like, if you're trapped in a jungle for 26 years, that subtle, tiny little thing of just having toilet paper again is like, yes.
Well, with that, like, some of the story gave so many feels, and mainly like it's showing Alan Parrish coming back into the world and seeing that things are completely different. Like, his house has new people living with it. And then when he goes to find his parents and he finally leads it to the graveyard, and his parents there's their headstone. And I was like so heartbroken. Like, oh man.
Well, and it kind of did do the disembodied person inside somebody else, because in the original, Jack Black, because he went into the jungle at such a young age, he still is very childlike in the way he acts and the way he talks.
You mean Robin Williams?
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Jack Black.
Why did I say Jack Black? Robin Williams definitely acts like a kid in a lot of the circumstances, and he still has very childish mentality towards a lot of things.
Oh, I love when they go to drive the car and he's like, I've never done this before.
Yep. And it's so many things like that. One of the things that was a little weird in the original was Peter pulling the Home Alone kind of shit in the store, with him like putting the oxygen tanks with the dumbbells to create a trap with the boat to hit Van Pelt. And I'm like, okay, what kind of genius ass kid is this kid? Like, what? Who thinks that at such a young age? Especially when you're being shot at and trying to...
Hey, it's a good thing that Van Pelt can't aim, even though he's a trained hunter.
It did seem a little weird in the first one, especially, that the game seemed to always keep wanting to steal the game away from them.
Yeah, the game wanted them trapped so it could keep causing havoc almost.
Yeah.
Like, it was weird.
It's like, why are you doing that? And I did like that both games started with the same opening message.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And they read it aloud.
And one of the things I really loved is at the beginning of the original one, Sarah says the pieces, when they move on their own, they're like, oh, it must be magnets. And then in the 90s one, they're like, oh, it must be microchipped or something.
Oh, in the new one?
Or I guess no, when Judy sees it in the 90s, she says it's microchipped. So I loved that, like, when they play it 2 different times, they both talk about different things because of the different time periods. Like, oh, it's magnets. Technology. Oh, it's microchips. And there's just so many different unique things. I love when the monkeys see the flying monkeys in the Wizard of Oz playing on the screens on the TVs.
That was pretty great.
The plant grabbing the cop car always reminded me of Little Shop of Horrors, like feed me Seymour, like the plants that were always trying to eat the kids and stuff. I was like, oh jeez.
I will say that the sense of adventure in the original movie is top notch.
Yeah.
And then like with the new movie, I really like the way that game kind of interacts, and like when the game starts acting up and they're like, well, it must be like bugged or it must be broken or something. Let me look at it. And
yeah, so much of that is just really interesting.
I will say the main character in the remake, I really love how he's like a video game nerd and how he plans ahead by saying his moves out loud.
Yes.
And then it calls back later in the movie when he's in Dwayne's body and he's doing all the uppercuts and stuff and he's yelling out the moves out loud. And
uppercut. Okay. Throw the wall or throw at the wall. Well, and like I said, like some of the different things, and I love like the cutscenes that this had and other gaming lingo with NPCs and him like being the only gamer describing to everybody what all these things mean.
Wait, what's happening? Oh, it must be a cutscene. These happen at the beginning of the game sometimes. Or, oh, you know what? He must be an NPC. He must have only a limited set of dialogue options.
And then talking about like funny lines and stuff in this movie. Again, talking about like when Bethany finds out that she has a penis, so she's looking at it. She's like, I literally have a penis attached to my body right now. Martha, come look at my penis. And she's like, no, thanks. She's like, the fact that I'm not Instagramming this right now is crazy. And I love the different types of people they brought into the game too. Having the football player, the really popular chick, the chick that nobody really talks to that's kind of shy but also kind of abrasive, and then the random nerdy kid.
The little nerdy kid.
And them being almost like the exact opposite of their bodies types.
Yeah, right.
Like perfectly. It works really well for them, and I say it. I can't say it enough. This is some of the best I've seen of some of these actors. I think this is one of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's best movies, especially for acting purposes wise. Besides, I think Fast Five. I don't think I know another movie that I think The Rock is as good or better than this movie.
I could think of a few movies I really like him in, but I definitely think this is pretty top notch for him. This did kick off kind of the Dwayne Johnson run of movies where he's in a jungle wearing, a brown jungle suit the whole time.
Yeah.
Because he's in like 5.
Journey to the Center of the Earth 1 and 2, and Escape to Witch Mountain, and a couple others that were all around the same time. Yeah, he was in Rampage as well.
It's pretty funny. But,
yeah. And also kicked off him and Kevin Hart's run together too.
Yeah, I think they have great chemistry together inside the movie and outside the movie. It's really cool watching them interact. But I really enjoyed the way they were in this movie. One thing I will say about the new one is where the original one kind of, took its time getting to places. This new one kind of feels rushed at points.
Yeah.
Like things move so quickly throughout this movie. Before I knew it, the movie was over, which I mean isn't necessarily a bad thing, but
and it's one of those movies where like a lot of people are like wanting to give up or really scared, and then it just takes one speech to turn their mind around instantly.
But everything just rushes point to point, and I mean, I kind of get it because they are in a video game and they're trying to show how moving from level to level can move fairly quickly, and it changes scenery quite fast.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the movie does kind of just, you get some whiplash with how fast this movie goes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Karen Gillan's character doing the dance fighting.
That was so much fun.
The negative about it is the damn song got stuck in my head for like 2 days. It's a good song, but just for 2 days, I'm sitting there humming it. Like, man.
Isn't it the, ooh, baby, I love the way.
Yep.
Every day.
And thank you. I just had that out of my head and it's back.
This has the worst first kiss in a movie I've seen in a long time in the new one.
Oh, really?
When The Rock and Karen Gillan kiss as, oh my gosh, and they're just like open mouth, like they've never even seen a kiss before. And then when they get to the real world and they first have their first kiss in the real world, it's a perfect kiss. Exactly perfect. Like everything you'd ever dream for in a kiss. And I'm like, okay, how did you go from that to that in just one kiss?
Practiced in the game, you know?
Secondly, this also, I made fun of it in A Knight's Tale. And I told you that a lot of movies have this trope of the 360 kiss cam. This had the 360 kiss scene. And I was like, there it is again.
There it is. No, I was asking my wife about the new movie as well, and how she said the original movie, you know, it's almost scary and it seems kind of hard to get into it. She said that this new movie almost seems easier to get immersed into the story, and it's more fun. Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, she had not seen the original before. Oh. So she saw this new one first. She only saw the original with me a few days ago when I watched it for the podcast. So she's like, you know, maybe if I did see it growing up, I would think differently, but she definitely enjoys the new one better, and she thought it was easier to get into the movie, and the old one was still good, but it was slower moving.
Yeah. Well, and the implications of especially the first one compared to the second one, of the time travel is a little different too, because in the first one, then when they complete the game, they go back to when Alan was first playing the game, and it's back to his childhood. And then it's really interesting because they actually have like a Christmas party, and Alan ends up hiring the kids' parents to work for him. Mm-hmm. And the parents, and they're like, oh, when can you start working right away? And this is something I never caught until this time watching it before. But the parents are like, oh, we were thinking before starting work that we'd go to Denver and we'd go skiing. And they both scream, no, really loud. And the whole party like gets quiet for a second. And I never understood why. But their parents died in a car accident in Denver in the original timeline.
On their skiing trip.
And so they actually changed the timeline. His father was still alive. The kids' parents were still alive. The kids didn't end up ever living with their aunt and getting the house. Like, this game, but it being like a sentient being, also like changes timelines.
Interesting.
And I was like, that's so interesting. And like the same thing with the new one, when the Nick Jonas's character goes back in time, and when they go to his house to see the freak house isn't a rundown place with a crazy old guy in it. Now it's a lovely house with Tom Hanks' son playing Nick Jonas's character as an adult.
Yeah.
And he goes up and he sees everyone right away, and he's like, you must be the four from the game. And he remembers exactly their names and everything. I mean, he probably would because it was a traumatic experience.
Yeah, right.
Especially because he was trapped there for 20 years. Yeah. And he probably would remember that Bethany. And I love that he instantly knew, like, you're Bethany, aren't you? Just probably because of the way that she was looking at him. And he's like, I named my daughter Bethany. And I was like, and it completely changes the timeline again. And I was like, that's so crazy that this thing is like a sentient being, but also changes timelines.
I do love the idea that after beating the game, it resets to the point that you got stuck in the game. Yeah. So it's cool watching those characters go back, you know, the 20 years or the 26 years, and then the, you know, current time kids go back right before they got stuck in the game. So yeah, I really liked that concept.
I also there's a couple questions I had. Why is it only kids can hear the drums and only certain people? Because like at the construction site in the first one, no one hears it except for Alan.
Yeah.
And
then the other kids and their aunt doesn't hear it.
Yeah.
I feel like the game is like, it's not necessarily the kids, only kids can hear it. I feel like the game is calling out to certain people.
Yeah, I think it is too.
It's interesting though, like why?
Well, and I loved some of the things in this funny joke with this, that Alan living in the jungle by himself is equivalent to Gohan in Dragon Ball Z being left to survive by Piccolo for his first training. It's a DBZ reference. If you don't get it, you don't get it. And then I also like kind of laughed. At one point, Sarah in the original says that she had to spend 2,000 hours of therapy to deal with the trauma of seeing him get sucked into the game and no one believing her.
Oh man!
And then everyone telling her that he was killed by his father and sliced into pieces and hid through the house or whatever. And so I kind of like looked up. I was like, all right, so 2,000 hours. That's 33 and a third days. And at the lowest average cost of, I saw about probably $65 an hour for about that time frame for for therapy and psychiatric work. It comes out to a total of like $130,000 she spent on therapy.
Rough.
I was like, Jesus.
That poor woman.
I kind of wanted, like, one of the things that I thought would have been funny is I wanted to see more of this. I really liked having the perspective of the cop randomly throughout the day, seeing all of this stuff. Like, did a monkey just steal my car? And I almost want to see like a whole, like maybe like a short movie or something of just things that he would have seen throughout the entire day.
A day in the life of that cop. What happened?
Like, because that was seriously, it was so funny. Just him just randomly like, what is happening? Okay, there goes my car. There goes my motorcycle.
Poor guy.
It's just so ridiculous. Sees this kid that he used to know back in the day that made him lose his job 26 years ago.
Rough.
Yeah.
But do you have any other thoughts on these movies?
I kind of laughed that these are, they both end as Christmas movies.
Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't even think about that.
And we're doing this in the month of December.
Well, here you go.
Or at least recording in the month of December.
Confirmed Jumanji Christmas movie.
There we go.
So thank you for joining us. That was original remake of Jumanji.
Yes.
Check them out. They are, I think, between HBO Max and you could probably check them out on any like rental, like Amazon or something.
And Vudu, you can rent them on, stuff like that. Do you have a preference of which one you like better?
Which one do I like better? Nostalgia wants me to say the original because I love Robin Williams and it's just such a cool movie and a great concept. And I don't know, I really enjoyed playing the board game as a kid as well. But do I have a favorite? I really like the remake too. I'd probably say I like the new one better. Okay. But by like a slim margin. Like it's not much more. But I do think I like the new one better.
I think I kind of have to agree. And it's things like kind of like what your wife said. This one's really easy to get into. It's just really hilarious of a movie. And I kind of like the video game aspects of it. And the way they did that was extremely well. Yeah. Especially for like older style video games. Like this is exactly how older style video games were. And I just love that aspect of it so much. And the way that these people acted in this movie is so incredible. Like I'm not saying that the original actors were bad because they were incredible too, but it's just two completely different movies with two completely different feels. And I think rewatchability, the new one has a lot more rewatchability, but they're both fantastic movies. But I think I have to agree that the one I will watch over and over and over again is probably the new one.
That's completely fair. They're such good movies.
They really are.
But yeah, so join us next week. The next 2 episodes are going to be special episodes. We're doing some more wife pick episodes.
Yes.
Next week is my wife picked How to Train Your Dragon.
Yes.
And this time we are looking at movies that our wives find special to them for some reason. So we will be letting you guys know why they picked those movies as well next time.
Exactly.
So join us next week for How to Train Your Dragon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.